I used to be the lead singer for Exodus, one of the original members. The person that really influenced me was Winston Soso. And those are the persons who stand out, i.e., Skinny Fabulous, Problem Child, Wetty Beats, Luther, Fireman, Hans, and a couple others, not to even mention those cream of the crop names, but sandwich between there is a lot of rubbish. I mean, I make no apologies for that.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wiseman. Welcome to Vincy Internet Radio via Zoom. And also, we're going to say good afternoon to our host for this evening, Mr. Moulton says. Ken, I want you to give me a little bit of, tell us a little bit about Ken for the people who don't know Ken Wiseman.
Well, for persons who don't know me, I used to be the lead singer for Exodus, one of the original members. And I did that for a stint of approximately 23 years, with a few breaks in between there where I would have had some stints in Holland with Ambassadors and Gravity. So all in all, my musical career in St. Vincent up to 1998 or thereabouts lasted for about 23 years approximately before I migrated to the UK.
Once again, I just want to say pleasant good afternoon or good night, wherever in the world you may be, and welcome to our program, Strictly Vincy. And today we have the honor of talking to former band member, lead singer, Ken Wiseman. Ken, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me. And I'm quite excited so we can get into some details about myself and my music in general.
Right, because we're also excited too, because back in the day, Exodus was one of the main band at that time. So what I want to do now is to let you take us back to where it all began for you in the music business, like just prior to Exodus, how you got involved.
Okay. Well, as a young lad, I grew up around Hospital Road, right next to Victoria Park, close to what we used to call the Shankweiler Church. Between the Shankweiler Church and there was a lodge on the so I was sandwiched between there with it. My mother used to be a domestic servant for the Hadleys. And so in her role there, we lived on the premises in a separate compound. And that property stretched from Hospital Road right back to the road to the well on the other side. And she was also my godmother. So I had a very good relationship with her throughout my primary and secondary school career. So as I was that close to the park, and as a young lad, I became interested in the major sports which was played there at the time, which was mainly cricket and football. So I played both. And if I can say, I think I accomplished fairly good standard in both of them. And somewhere along the line, during my stint at St. Martin's Secondary School, the school used to host a talent show. And I decided one year that I was gonna put my name down to partake in this talent show. Reflecting now, I'm not sure how brave that was, but it obviously paved the way for me as an artist and as a lead singer further down the road. So what happened is I performed on that show, and following that performance, which was mainly attracted a lot of the secondary school or the secondary schools and kids. I was approached, I can't remember exactly by whom, but I was told that, you know, we guys, we have a young group. We usually rehearse X days a week at Olive's Hotel, and must come along. So I went along, and to find that persons like Ashley Marksman, who is still around in St. Vincent, Bertram Walker, who was the bass player at the time, and Dr. Wilfred Lane, who was the guitarist at the time, and Jerome Neverson Gopal. He was the founder of the band, actually, and he actually got these guys together but had no equipment, but he was a technician by profession. So he actually built quite a lot of the amplifiers which they were rehearsing on at the time was all home built. And so when I went, I had to do an audition with Jerome. And when I did the audition, he said, yeah, I think you could come along, and that's where it all started. And we were rehearsing, you know, ever so often, excited young guys playing on homemade equipment, dreaming to play on a proper amplifier. And we persisted, and along the way we gathered. I remember at one point we had one amplifier. I think the first amplifier we got, if I can remember correctly, was a Fender. And I remember a guitarist by the name of Ken Rose was involved then. And as we elevated from under Olive's Hotel step, we then went to Sign Hill. And we had a room downstairs. Ebenezer Joshua's residence up at Sign Hill. Mrs. Joshua was there. And we used to be going up there to rehearse how many days a week. One amplifier, excited, vocals coming through it, guitar coming through it, and the bass. You know, and yeah, we grew from there, and we started going down in the leeward side, going Pity Bedell, Chateaubalay, Rose Hall, Rosebank, you name it. And I remembered, because in those days we would go on a truck, and that truck would be just the pan in the back with the equipment, and you know, when you finish playing 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, you're coming back up in the back of the truck with the equipment, and it's, you know, it's dark, it's cold, but that was us paying our dues, you know. Now we grew from strength to strength with all those experiences, where we then started to knit as a unit. And we then, I think, was elevated into Kingstown now. So we thought, well, we were good enough to at least try to get onto the main stage, and that main stage in those days was Aquatic. So I think one of the experiences that would stick with me until I die would be us trying to get onto Aquatic Club. And Jerome knew, in those days, Asterix was a house band.
Yes.
And Jerome got in touch with some of the members of Asterix and asked if we can fill the spot during the intermission. Those days you used to have a half an hour, 45 minutes intermission. And obviously, the Asterix members said, yes, there was no problem. So we can come out that Friday night. That was the Friday nights was the big nights in Aquatic in those days. And we all excited, and, you know, we're going to get a stint in Aquatic Club because that was prestige, you know. And when we got there, And Jerome went in and obviously spoke to Stilly Fraser, who was the proprietor at the time, God bless his soul, and indicated to him what we were about that night. And Stilly said he had no problem, but we had to pay to go in. Bear in mind, we were school kids, yeah?
Mhm.
And we were going to perform in his club, and he said we had to pay. So we put our hands in our pockets with a little pocket change that we had, and I think it was $1 to go in Aquatic Club in those days. So we actually found $1 per head. I can't remember how many heads we had, but we raised the funds and we went in. And that was the price we had to pay to get on that stage. So sometimes you have to pay your dues monetarily.
True.
And cohesively as a unit as well, in terms of getting the entire unit performing as one. So we paid, we went in, and we did a very good job during that intermission slot, to the point that the crowd was so whipped up, and who is this band? You know, wow.
Mhm.
That,
Around what year would that have been?
This would have been, I think, around 78.
Mhm.
Because La Soufre erupted in 79 and we were already on the scene. So I would think it would have been around 78.
Okay.
And we did, and Stilly came back and asked if we can come back the following Friday night. And that was the conveyor belt that saw us.
So you didn't have to pay the second time.
No, we didn't have to. We didn't have to pay. He had to pay us from then on. How ironic.
Mhm.
So he made an arrangement for us to come every Friday night, and we did. And so he was now getting, but we were getting the crumbs, really, But
Right.
we weren't bothered with the crumbs. We were satisfied with the
Happy
crumbs.
with that. True.
Yeah. And so that then became, Stilly's advertising became a doubleheader every Friday night, Asterix and Exodus. And it just got bigger every Friday in terms of patronage. And Stilly, obviously, as a businessman, seized upon the opportunity to increase the price by 100%.
Wow.
So from $1, it went to $2. And obviously, he still wanted to treat us with the crumbs. So we called a meeting and we said, hey, because now we realized that we had a following and we contributed to the influx of the crowd that he was getting every Friday. And we said, no, Stilly, you got to do better than that. Whatever price he was paying, I can't remember, but it would have been crumbs. Let's say for argument's sake, he was paying us $300, which I think it wouldn't have been much more than that. We then said to him, well, Stilly, well, you increase your price 100%. So whatever you were paying us, then you need to increase our price
True.
to 100% as well. And we had our little bassa, but anyway, we came to an arrangement, and that's where Exodus grew from strength to strength. And we played there for quite a long time every Friday, and then we started going out to other places. And sandwiched between there now, I think we did our very first album, which was entitled "It's Just the Beginning."
But just before that, so by then, when you went to Aquatic Club, you were already Exodus.
Exodus, yes.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yes, we always traded under the name Exodus from day one when we went up.
Okay, and who gave the band that name? How did you guys come up with that name, or who gave the band that name?
I think, I'm not sure who gave the name in terms of.
Would it have been from the Bob Marley song Exodus, or it was there before?
Yes, it would have been stemmed from that, but they tweeted the spelling. in order not to conflict the biblical
Yeah, I
spelling of
think
it.
it was more like Exodus.
Exodus, yes.
Yes,
But
exactly.
that is where the idea originated from. And if we know, Exodus means movement of the people.
Yeah.
So I think embodying the name Exodus meant a new movement. And but that name would probably have been derived from either one of 3 or 4 sources, either Jerome, Bertram, Walker, that is, Dr. Freddie Lane, Vidas, or Ashley Beatty Maxman. One of them, I'm not sure who would have come up with that idea. But that was the whole concept of the Exodus name. As a matter of fact, we used that Bob Marley song as one of what we would call a theme song before we started our set for a number of years. So before any track would be played, we used that first and foremost as an identity of who we were. And meanwhile, during that you would be doing your leveling out. The engineer would be using that opportunity to adjust the different leveling of the instruments and so on. So that's where we got that idea from.
So yeah. So before I cut you off, you were telling me about the movement now from after the Aquatic Club.
Right. After the Aquatic Club, we then embarked on recording an album. And if I can safely say, we may have been the first band to record an album, not just an album, but an album of all the tracks were originals. I knew you would have had Latinas and so on before us, but I might be correct in saying that we were the first to record a full-fledged album of all original tracks. And I think there was something like 8 or thereabout. And that was split between myself and Vincent Gopal, who is the brother of Jerome Gopal. And quite timely we having this interview because I was told during the course of this week that Vincent Gopal is now in St. Vincent on vacation.
Oh, wow.
So I haven't spoken to him for a number of years, but it's good to know that he is in St. Vincent, and it would have been a pleasure for us to connect. But at this time, we have no communication link. So I hope I spoke to Lennox, who is his brother-in-law, that we can make that connection and have some sort of communication again. But those tracks were written by myself and Vincent. And we embarked on going to, those days you have to go to Barbados, closest to record. And those days your recordings were done on tapes, tracks. The tracks were laid down on your tapes. It wasn't digital at the time. And then your recording was done in 2 phases. You lay down your tracks and then you have to mix and master, placed on another 1/4-inch tape, and then you would do your pressing and so on for your vinyl at the time. But when we did the first phase, we were out of cash because going to another island to record was very expensive because you had a combination of factors involved there. You had airfares, ground transportation, hotel accommodation and meals, and of course your studio time. So we came back with the tapes, not mixed, nor mastered, and we continued playing. But somewhere along the line, we got in touch or connected with Jerry Scott's brother from Holland, who was Bob Scott, who himself was an artist in Holland at the time. And we connected, and he said, during this time now I was teaching, yeah? So he connected and said that he liked the effort, and he would assist by completing the project in Holland, which was to do the mastering and the mixing and the mastering and the pressing of the vinyl, the records. So he decided he would take up that phase. And he was traveling back to Holland during the December. And I was teaching then, so we had vacation, school vacation. I was teaching at Petersville. I was dealing with the common entrance class in preparation for what you call 11 plus exams to go into secondary schools. So I decided, we anticipated wrongly that we can have the project finished in time for me to return for the beginning of the second term, which was January of the school year. However, when we got to Holland, the studios were all closed. And then when they were reopening, they were all booked until sometime in March or April of the following year. And I was then in a precarious position because I left to complete the project, and because of the duration of the availability of the studios, there was one of two things I could have done. One was to either stay and complete the project, or at the detriment of me sacrificing my job, or go back home to St. Vincent, come back home to St. Vincent with the project unfinished, as we were. So I made the decision there and then. I called up, obviously communicated with the other members of the band and highlighted what the situation we were faced with. And because I had that love for the music, not even knowing where it would take me, I decided collectively with the guys that I was going to stay and complete the project. In so doing, I had to resign as a teacher. Wow. So I wrote my resignation letter and resigned. And sandwiched between there was an arrangement between myself and the band that because the band was still functioning, mind you, because they had Vincent singing, that I was the only child for my mother. And obviously she had retired. I retired her as well. As soon as I started teaching, I told my mother, your role to look after me is now ended. It's my turn to look after you.
True.
So she resigned, retired from her role, and we obviously lived up at Edinburgh, upper Edinburgh at the time. So I was the only breadwinner in the house. And I said to Exodus, can you treat, I'm doing this, so would you treat my absence as paid absence so that you would deliver whatever the disbursements of the payments were to my mother during the period that I'm there looking after the project, which was all agreed. And unfortunately, that wasn't done. Wow. I'm letting you know this so that you can follow my change of band to another band. And only to find out that after about a month or so, that the arrangement we had in place was not honored. So therefore, my mother was without money. And when I was told that over the phone, obviously in the presence of Bob Scott, I was quite disturbed. And there and then he said to me, what's wrong? So I explained to him what happened. And he said, that's not good. You know, because you're here doing this and you made arrangement. And to cut a long story short, that was the breaking point between myself and Exodus. Early days, I think when we came back he said to me, now you can see what you're dealing with. I'm offering you the option when you go back with the project to form your own band, and I will bring you back up to Holland. So I came back, and I think Exodus went to Canada and the United States in 1980. Because we then did 79 was No Carnival, we won the road. Super Dance was on that album. So I came back, and Super Dance, Last and Free erupted. The project was completed. I brought back the project completed as promised. And so during that time, I was still playing with the band, but I voiced my disapproval as to what transpired and indicated to them what my plans were. And we toured and went to New York, and we went to Montreal and Toronto. We had a fantastic tour. We went back, and whilst in New York, we recorded Swivel Dance with Granville Straker, who was my cousin. And we did a 45. So it was a release off of the main album. And of course, Exodus continued going from strength to strength. So I left. That was my first departure from Exodus. And I formed a band which I called Ambassadors. Why Ambassadors? Because I thought of the representation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in a European country which was not very popular as far as Vincentian migrants were concerned. You could probably count the amount of Vincentians in Holland at the time on your two hands. And so I chose that name in terms of representation, because I looked at us going to Holland to represent St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I got in touch with players like Eiffel Shot, who went on to become the bass player for Touch, and Didion James, who also went on to be a player for Touch. And I had a guitarist in the name of Al Wilson, who used to play for Latinez. God bless his soul, he passed away in the latter part of last year. And also a drummer called Luba Samuel from Kingan. He used to living in Trinidad, did some musical stints in Trinidad. And God bless his soul, he passed on as well. And we toured Holland, and that was the combo side. But in Holland, we added some horns. So we were a full-fledged orchestra. And we came up, again, we had to pay our dues in Holland because we were going into a virgin market. And so it was like deja vu all over again. You know, playing for a dozen people, 2 dozen people, and then you grew in stature, and we were playing from Amsterdam to Rotterdam to Utrecht. And as we grew, we connected with a group from Curacao called Babalu. And Babalu was a prominent Antillean band. And so we had a lot of joint gigs, and it just blew up. And we were in real demand in Holland. I mean, from one extreme to the other, where every dance was filled to capacity. And so because we were then the only and prominent soca band in Holland.
Okay, that was a question I was going to ask you. If at that time, I guess soca music wasn't that popular in that part of Europe.
It wasn't at all. It wasn't at all, which is a good thing you say that, because it brings me to my next point. During that stint, we used to come over to England and go back over to Holland. And the Mighty Arrow was coming to Holland for the first time. And we actually was approached to do the contract for all the shows whilst he was on the continent. And like when you're dealing with many individuals, you have a lot of personal characteristics to deal with. So embodied it in all of that, which we were out there for about a year plus, I think it was. One or two members, Patches Knights was with us as well on keyboards, forgot Patches. And one or two members became homesick and expressed the need to return home. So we decided, okay, we can't hold anybody at ransom. So together with management, which is, when I say management, Bob Scott and his brother, Jimmy Scott, God bless his soul. God bless both of them souls. They're passed on as well. They decided, okay, we will go home, and he bought a building in Lower Edinburgh, which was owned by Trotmans. And we opened a nightclub there called Ambassadors Nightclub. And when we came back to St. Vincent, we brought down back all the equipment, van transportation, fully equipped with disco lights, top of the range lighting systems for the nightclub. And that whole building was transformed into a proper nightclub on the upper floor. And with all the intricacies that you would experience in a nightclub in any other country. And we began there very well. And I remember this because we were then the only band which was being operated professionally in terms of full-time career. So we had more time on our hands. So during Carnival, we did almost every show there was in the Victoria Park because of us being available to do all the rehearsals with Junior Calypso, the major Calypso competition, all the Strikers used to have his all-stars cast on one of those nights. We did all that. We did every single show there was in the park. And obviously, the name Ambassadors became the name. Sandwiched between, of course, you had a lot of other bands, very good bands around there. You had Asterix, you had Maguire's, after Two Souls, Climax, Volume 5 or whatever. But it's not like no, St. Vincent had bands upon bands.
Right, you brought back a lot of memories there when you call those band names.
Yeah, so we can name them and still go on. We had Volcano as well, Resurrection. Right. Loads. Every village, every major town had a band actually.
Right. So we're gonna touch on those later. I just have to bring CP in. So I'm gonna bring CP in, and then we're gonna come back. We have to touch all those back. We have so much to talk about, man. I'm really enjoying the history of it.
Ken, good afternoon and welcome again to Vincy Internet Radio. You listen to the Fresh Clean Sound. You listen to Vincy Internet Radio. We have with us Ken Whizzy Wiseman. The brother was out of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, now based in the UK. Ken, I'm gonna take you back, way back. School days. Walking out of St. Martin Secondary School into the classroom. Give us some history of your educational side as a teacher.
Great. Well, when I left St. Martin School, I, for some reason, decided I want to be involved in teaching. So I actually was educated at Petersville School, a secondary education. Most of my primary education was private tuition. I had an early stint at the Anglican school, of which the headmistress at the time was Mrs. Edna Peters. And Mrs. Edna Peters, she went on to open the Petersville private school with a handful of students. I think might have been no more than 10 or 12. And I was one of those very first students who was then transferred from Anglican school to Petersville's private school. And when I finished Petersville private school, I then did my 11 plus, and I did pretty young. I was just over 10. I think the year was, you could have been so much months over to be eligible to do your 11 plus. I was just within that borders, not 11, but just over 10, and sat the exams and was given a place at the grammar school, St. Vincent Grammar School. And I think because I was that young, that first year was not very enjoyable at all at the grammar school. So I then requested a transfer, and then I went to St. Martin's. And so most of my secondary education was at St. Martin's. And when I then left St. Martin's, I decided I can hand back some of what I had to give back to the school, which was responsible for my secondary education. So I then went, that's how I went back to teach at Petersville School. And I had just left school about 17, 18 max, I think it was. And I thoroughly enjoyed that stint, because during that time before I retired, I had, when I look back on some of my ex-students now, I can see that many of them has gone on to have very viable professions. Some have become architects, some have become top electrical engineers, owning their own company, and some have become professors in education. I recently saw one of my ex-students, Justin Robinson, was elevated to the chancellor or something at one of the well-established universities in the Caribbean. So yeah, it's so I do have made contact since the invention of social media, and now I speak to them, and they you know, at that time I was only about 10 years older than the kids. Eight max, I think between 7 or 8 years, because I was dealing with 11 plus and I was about 18, 19. So it would have been 8 years max. I was that much older than my actual pupils. And I thoroughly enjoyed that period.
Now take us back to the beginning of Exodus. We know that when Exodus started, there were some technicians around Exodus, and they take the radios and make them into amplifiers. Give us a little bit background history on that.
Yeah, it was Jerome Neverson who was responsible for that, because as I mentioned earlier, Exodus had no money because we were all schoolboys. And so Jerome used his knowledge in the technical field and rigged up some homemade amplifiers, and they were good enough. They were good enough to rehearse on and take us from the nursery stages until we could have afforded to buy properly. As I mentioned, one amplifier to start with everything coming through that. And then we grew from strength. We bought another amplifier. As we played, we bought another amp, and so on, and a proper drum kit and a proper PA system. I remember the first one we had was a show. Show PA system was what was going. I can't remember the name of the model, but there quite a few bands had the show PA systems, which was just for vocals. And yeah, so it was quite a challenging road, but we stuck together, and I can safely say that it was worth the while, because we went on to represent St. Vincent and the Grenadines at many overseas destinations, either on tour privately or representing the nation at various expos or trade shows. And that journey took us many places, including, just to name a few, Colombia, Barbados, Trinidad, Grenada, Canada, that's Toronto and Montreal, New York, Sweden, the UK, St. Martin. I mean, it's the list just goes on and on and on and on. So the journey was pretty eventful and enjoyable.
When you was talking about the Aquatic Club and Stilly Fraser, I start laughing, but the reason why I start laughing, I used to work there. So I know the history.
Oh, you told Stilly to charge us then.
Incidentally, I was at the door.
Oh dear. Oh, wow, there you go.
So I know the history. So that's why I start laughing. Yeah, it was and then you guys really build the name because you had a lot of followers and a lot of people started gravitated to Exodus, and Exodus really become a household name in St. Vincent just because of your splice. I remember the first night you guys came in there and play within the intermission period. There used to be about 30 to 45 minutes intermission. And you guys came in there and really had the crowd going. And I couldn't believe it. Who is these guys, you know? So I'm part of that history.
Okay, brilliant.
Yes. So outside that now, I know you guys migrated. You did a lot of stint throughout the Eastern Caribbean and wider world. Which one of those would you record as you outstanding or something that you will remember right away?
Without any debate, Colombia. And Colombia was, for me, the pinnacle of what the closest we got to in terms of the way celebrities received. You look, those days you had Michael Jackson and all the works, and you look at when they're touching down for in a city for a performance and they're given red carpet treatment and the press is all like hyped up, and that was just an experience. From the time we left Miami, because what happened, this show was hosted in Cartagena by the Colombian government at the time. And it was an annual festival where they brought together the cream of the crop from the entire Caribbean to perform. And that year, when all the artists would converge in Miami, and then you'll be taken to Colombia on the Colombian Airways. What was the name of that airways? Yeah. Anyway, from the time we left Miami, that's where it all began. Once we were airborne, the pilot said, the bar is up front, there is no service, you just come and serve yourself. And bear in mind, all on this chartered aircraft was all artists who were going to take part from all areas of Caribbean, including Burning Flames, Arrow, Beckett. I mean, so you had a plane full of just jolly, it was just buzzing and by the time we landed in Cartagena, it was, you were on a high already. And when you look into disembark now, and you coming down the steps of the aircraft, it was all red carpet from the tarmac straight into the terminal, and the press was there waiting, and it was, there is nothing close to stardom than that. So that's my pinnacle.
Now, I'm going to touch a little bit before I pass it back over to the host about Ken Wiseman as an individual singer competed in our national carnival? Give us a little background, because I know a little bit of history, but give the people some background.
Right. Well, over the years, myself and Razum, who was the lead singer at the time for Exodus, God bless his soul, keep saying that many times tonight, am I?
Yes. A lot of people throw out that history sometime, and I ask myself.
I have to give thanks and praise to the Almighty for preserving my life thus far. And I think I still have a lot to offer in the entertainment field, which is what I'm doing now. Because I feel good in myself. I'm healthy and touch wood. So myself and Razum, over the years, as we obviously were the songwriters for the band, bearing in mind, every year there was, apart from the competition in the dance halls with the bands, when it came to carnival, there was then the verge of competitions in terms of your releases for carnival. So myself and Razum would be the songwriters for the band. And when we came back from Colombia, that's where I got the idea of Baila Santa from. When we came back, Exodus was then closely associated with the Graduates Calypso tent, or the Undergraduates. I think they changed the name as time went by. But we were closely associated with the Calypso art form generally. And as the usual habit would continue when you're getting ready for a tent, myself and Razum would have already written our songs and would have already recorded for that year. And then they would be getting ready for the tent thereafter, because when you start working with the tent, your time consumption as a band, as collective unit is quite high. So we would be out of the way. But during that time now, we had the opportunity to listen in on the tent rehearsals for the Calypsonians over the years. And what we discovered in conversing between myself and Razum during one of these rehearsals, we were then on the outside, obviously. We realized that the way the Calypso delivery was being done in terms of the style of the music, the arrangement of the music was sort of stagnant. Nothing was evolving in terms of a change. It was the same old chang chang 1 2 3 chang 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 chang, and you know, that rhyme kind of style. So with that same old rhythm, and we decided that we can do something to sort of give some sort of guidance as we were working with the band more than the Calypsonians would have been working with the band at any given time. So we would have been able to incorporate within the same social commentary. We would have been able to sort of evolve the musical accompaniment in terms of the rhythmic patterns, so as to get the audience more interested in listening to what you have to say, but at the same time being able to tap the feet and you know, with a bit more rhythm involved in. So we decided that we would then enter the Calypso competition. And in so doing, we were sort of saying, follow us. and start to look at the trend that we were trying to interject into what was happening with the Calypso art form in general. And during those discussions, I remember one year myself and Razum was competing against each other in Calypso finals. And I think I had a stint in what we used to call Soca Monarch at the time as well. So we lended our, apart from being the vocalist of the band, we then diverted into the competition of Calypso at the same time. And Razum came out with that fantastic, what I would call anthem. And you know what I'm talking about, Perseverance.
Yeah, that was a good song. Guys, I think by now we've been going an hour, so we're just going to take a 5 minutes break. Make sure you guys go freshen up yourself and come back, and we'll continue.
Yeah, give me a break to take a drink as well. You get a glass of wine. You get a glass of wine.
One thing you might know, Ken, I didn't tell you that before, but we have a lot of listeners in Europe. Our biggest listening audience is basically England, Germany, even the French companies. So within this program, we really have a lot of European listeners. So you can take the opportunity to say hello to all the European listeners here for you.
Right. Let me just first of all say a special good evening to persons listening in the UK. I know I have quite a few persons listening in, persons in New York, Canada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and wherever you're being beamed. It's just an honor and a pleasure to be on this program and to share my bio, basically, of myself, and give you some insight into plans going forward, and where I think my contribution can still be valid as far as the Vincentian music is concerned.
In case you just join us, we're having a conversation with Ken Wiseman, former band member of the band Exodus. Ken, but you brought up those other bands who were around at that time, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as a small nation, is known to produce, a lot of outstanding bands back in the day. I just want to ask you, what do you think now is the reason for a decline in us seeing bands now as opposed to then?
I think there are two factors. I think the conveyor belt that we had, for some reason, have stopped. Somebody put the emergency brakes on. Who is responsible? I'm not sure. Because I can safely say that when we had a lot of bands in that era, I don't think there was any interjection per se from the Ministry of Culture in terms of being responsible for us having so many bands. Those bands at the time came from what was happening in society at the time. As I mentioned at the top of the program, almost every major town had a band, i.e. Lave, Barody, Georgetown, Kingstown, Bayaboo. So I think there was the appetite for young people at the time not to be involved in things that can lead you astray in terms of being idle. Our idle times were spent in the band room, and the point I want to make is it has to come from the enthusiasm of the kids within each of those communities to again try to get back to where we were in terms of having bands. We have excellent musicians. I know we have excellent musicians. But then again, it can be another factor why we haven't had bands. Because one of the things, when you have a band, you have to have venues to play. And I think it might have been a synchronized, not planned event, but whereby the demise of the bands came, I think, with the demise of venues. Because we lost Aquatic Club, and then we lost a lot of the other places. And then I think that's where the motivation, because at the time, remember I said, as a young band, the inspiration was to become good enough to perform at Aquatic Club. And then because you had to aim for Aquatic Club, you had a lot of other venues dotted around St. Vincent, not Kingston, but St. Vincent in general, whereby each town had a hall or a dance hall or two that each of those community bands would have been performing on a weekly basis. And then you would have that band maybe going to another community and another band from another community coming into that community. We have lost that. What's responsible, I'm not sure. But I know that there has been some effort over the years to introduce secondary school bands. And this can be the way forward, but however, we still end back up with the same problem, the venues. So, and then sandwiched between that came the DJs. And the DJs took over, and they have, I mean, I left St. Vincent in the year 2000, and the DJs were already the force, because people were then elevating towards the DJs. For what reason, I'm not sure. Might have been cost. It might have been cheaper to hire a DJ for a function rather than hiring a whole band. But the DJs came on stream and dominated, I think, up to today. And the DJs, they have not only dominated the dance halls, but a lot of those DJs then dominates the airwaves up to today. And as you know, we have quite a lot of FM stations in St. Vincent. So I would say it's a combination, and with that, where the DJs were then given an outlet, where they were then on radio, and they then created their own following. Because once you're on radio, and you're still performing live, you automatically are in the channel where, one, you have an audience on radio, and two, you would have that audience following you in your ventures on the weekend. So that is where we are today. And I think with that came another problem. Another problem in the fact that, as you and I know, our music in St. Vincent have evolved over the years. The style has evolved, and the BPM has gone mad, where if you're doing anything, say, under around 130 mark, you probably won't get a play.
Yeah.
You have to be 130 upwards, 145, 160. That's where we are today. And a lot of the transition there, I think the DJs have a big role to play there, because the loss within that is we have lost a lot of the sweeter aspects of our music, where we had an identity. Vincentian music had an identity on the Caribbean market. Vincentian music was much different to Trinidad. It was much different to Antigua. It was much different to the Virgin Islands. If you remember, a lot of those islands had their 160 upwards. I think the Virgin Islands were up there with their up tempo. Antigua had their symbol, Burning Flames, who had their own identity as well. So St. Vincent, we had our own identity. Even right up to the era of the bands. Each band had their own song.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it be in the dance or even on record. There was a particular song that you knew. If you heard that song, without knowing beforehand who was playing it, you can probably relate and say, oh, that's Touch, or that's Exodus, or that's Asterix. You know, and we have lost that. The DJs, if I may say today, there a lot of good music are left out from the radio stations on air, simply because a lot of the DJs now are the younger DJs, and they tend to trend with a particular style, which is where our music have now evolved with the youngsters. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, I wish that these DJs would still maintain and give more airplay to where our music came from. We cannot forget where our identity of our musical style came from. And just look at Trinidad, for example. Look back at Trinidad music this year, right? Have gone right back below 130. 90% of the music from Trinidad this year is below 130 BPM.
True.
Right? And Trinidad has gone, look, apparently, well, I think they've looked at the different markets and decided that they're going to pick a slot. We had a slot. And there is nothing wrong with evolving your music. But I think what has happened, if I can critique some of the youngsters who have evolved with our music going forward, I can call a couple of the seasoned guys who have taken our music as it evolves and taken it to a different level. And those are the persons who stand out, i.e. Skinny Fabulous, Problem Child, Wetty Beats, Luther, Fireman, Hans, and a couple others, not to even mention those cream of the crop names, but sandwiched between there is a lot of rubbish. I mean, I make no apologies for that. Mm-hmm. Sandwiched between a lot of what we have called the modern music. It's basically drum and bass, and the writing is atrocious sometimes. And I'm not being critical to be just to be critical. I just want, we can evolve, but we have to be constructive at the same time. So if I was to make this appeal to the youngsters who are writing write and evolve your musical rhythm patterns, but please, please have some substance in the writing, because writing is what it's the composition, and the composition has to follow a storyline and not just a hook line. You can have a hook line, but it has to be embedded within the story. So in other words, when I start listening to your song, I expect you to take me from your introduction right up to the phases. And we need to get back to some a lot more basic of that. And as I said, the seasoned ones are executing what I'm talking about properly. And we need to get more of the younger artists in line with that concept.
True. Ken, I really love this program, you know, because I'll tell you what, this is what we need to find out from, you know, veterans like you, what's going on. And you emphasize what I was going to say was my fourth point, but I was also going to add the artists. You said the DJs, I was going to add the artists. And the reason why I say I love this program, because you touched so many points there that are very, very valuable and we can learn a lesson from, right? Now, I think this generation of musicians or singers, I don't think they really, I think they kind of underestimate how much like being in a band can how far it can take you, how much fun you can have. Because there you were, you said you toured places like Colombia and had, you know, celebrity treatment, you know, and I don't think they realize like being in a band, you can be just as adventurous as when you're a solo artist, you know. So I'm glad you touched that point that you had fun, because I looked at your face when you were talking, and you can tell that you really had fun traveling and touring when you were a member of the band. And as far as the music goes, yes, I was going to add that, you know, maybe the artists, and you're right, you're so right, in Trinidad went back to their roots, because if you look at the song there, dance yourself away. So I don't know if it's the Afrobeat that's threatening soca, why they really revert to that, because Afrobeat is really moving at a pace that, you know, is unbelievable. So I don't know if Trinidadians looked at that and say, hey, let's go back to roots, because look, there's Afrobeat coming up and it's competing against us with our soca, you know. So, and like you say, it's always good to have the new generation doing their thing. But, you know, and I always compare soca and reggae with dancehall and reggae, and, you know, preserve what is the foundation, preserve what was there before. But like we say again, we don't get enough of the history of where the music came from. And if you don't know where the music came from, you're going to be out there lost and trying to do a thing to find an identity. So, you know, I'm glad, that's why I say I'm glad I love this program, because, you know, CP and I say it every week, CP and I learn so much, you know, about life, about stuff, when people like you come on and you know, spread it around and help us understand and to teach the new generation where, you know, the music has come from. Because a lot of people don't know, like, Sinvin's music was so unique, and when you call out, I didn't realize that there was so many bands that we had around
At one time.
At
All at one time.
Yeah, and
then
that
cake, not cutting you off, but that cake was small, but everybody was content.
Right, because there you were, two bands were playing in Aquatic Club, and I'm pretty sure you had no conflicts, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
so we've come a long way. I as an artist, mind you, as I said, there is nothing wrong with evolving your music. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the fundamental aspect of composing must not get lost in whatever you're trying to do with your rhythm patterns. I have changed. A lot of my rhythm patterns are different in all of my songs. You've played a few tonight. My rhythm pattern for Pull Aside, for example, I think I was ahead of myself when I developed that rhythm pattern with Ozzy Gurley, who did the musical accompaniment on the production of the album. That pull aside is a different flavor in terms of the drum pattern and so on from what was happening at there and then. It was more aiming to where we are now.
Right.
If you listen to the drum pattern of Pull Aside, and then embedded in that I have other patterns like Baila Sanka. That's a different rhythm pattern again, with a Spanish flavor. Then you have Bend Down, Don't Bend Down. Again, a zouk flavor. Pandy Rhythm, a social commentary with rhythm. Ring the Bell, a social commentary on rhythm. So my point is, yes, as an artist, you want to go different places, but you have to still maintain the composition. Your composition, whatever else you're going to do, on top of that, or rest that on top of anything, you cannot lose the composition aspect of your musical production.
True. So how did you make that transition now from being in the band to solo artist now?
What happened there was, when I did my last stint with Gravity in Holland, and I came back to St. Vincent, I then went into the workforce proper. And also I then rejoined Exodus. And during that stint, I worked as sales divisional manager at T. Geddes Grant, as a sales representative for Chubb Safes UK within the Geddes Grant umbrella. And during that stint, I had a very good sales profession in terms of developing myself as a sales rep and subsequently as a divisional manager for the office equipment division. And that interaction gave me a lot of other experiences in terms of me doing business with the major companies in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the government in general, in terms of supplying security equipment, whether it be safes or fireproof cabinets to protect vital records, and also down the line supply the offices with the general needs, from chairs to desk to paper clips to post-it notes, computer paper. In other words, I developed what was then a one-stop shop, where when I come to you as a sales representative, I can offer you everything in the office, from filing cabinets right down, projectors. So that was a very successful career. And my wife, who is upstairs now, we then embarked on a restaurant and bar, which is called Harborview Restaurant and Bar, which was right next to where Geddes Grant was at the time, opposite the financial complex. And we ran that for about 2 years. And during that time, Coates, which is right where Geddes Grant used to be now, they bought that company. They bought out Coates on the stock market. And because of my specific profession, which was to deal with the office equipment division, when Coates came into after buying out Geddes Grant, they were predominantly into domestic furnitures. So my role then became non-existent. And after having, I think, 10 years, 11 years with Geddes Grant. So I was given my golden handshake. And also combined with that, I was then given all the lines that Coates used to represent in terms of the office furnitures, the stationary equipment, the safes, because I had a stranglehold on the market. So all the companies that Geddes Grant used to represent through myself, they then said to me, well, Mr. Wiseman, here's the opportunity. We would give you the same concessions, the same trading arrangements, because you have the market already. So I then opened up the Harborview office equipment supplies. So we had two businesses running concurrently. One was based in the Russell's Mall, which was the office equipment division. And of course, the restaurant was upstairs, the Ken Thomas building. So there then became what was called, the workload was then stretched. And there was another, if I can make this public, there was another discrepancy between myself and Exodus. And at that time, we had Signal come on the market, I think, at the time as well. So you had Signal join the line there. I forgot was to mention Signal. But at the time then, we had a band meeting. And I remembered one member of the band saying during that meeting that they think, myself and Razam were the lead singers. I remembered one member saying that they think that we needed some young blood up front. And I was like, young blood up front? What are you talking about? Bearing in mind, I'm just what? In my early 30s. Yeah. Razam was probably just a little bit younger than me. And so I said, well, if you need younger blood, then go and get younger blood. I'm out. And that was it. So I left, and within 2 weeks, I was at the Harborview restaurant, and a couple of the guys came up to me and said, the band have just folded up. And there you go. Had that comment not been made, it might have been a different story. I'm not sure. I mean, I can't look back and say what, or look into the crystal ball and say this is what might have happened or that's what might have happened. But there very well might have been a continuation of Exodus beyond that date, of lasting 2 weeks after that comment was made. And prior to that, Exodus that year was 98. Yeah. I did a solo recording 97 and 98. Because at that time, Exodus have had problems recording from time to time, because recording, as I said, was a very expensive venture. So 97, Exodus was unable to raise funds for recording. So I did my own recording, which I did the Pandrhythm album. And 98, still with the band. The same story, Exodus was unable to raise funds to do their annual Carnival recording. So I traveled, those two recordings, I traveled to Canada and worked with Ozzy Gurley. And I did my second album, which was then entitled Pull Aside. And following that, that's when we had that meeting. So, but there were structural problems creeping in. And I just couldn't be bothered. I had too many things to be taken care of, to be embedded with any arguments about whether or not we would needed younger blood up front or not. Once that statement was made, I just thought I was unwelcome, and I just took the exit.
Sure, it's time to move on. Yeah. Before CP jumps in again, so you had gone from Exodus to Ambassadors, and you went back to Exodus.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I finished one tour, and came back home, Exodus, that was not before Gravity though. After Exodus, after Ambassadors, where we broke up with we had a beef with the management at the time, where this goes back to Aquatic Club now. Ambassadors became so popular that Stevie Fraser came to ask us over at our club, had a meeting to get Ambassadors to play at Aquatic Club. And the management, the owners of Ambassadors said, no, we cannot go to play at Aquatic Club because we have to play at Ambassadors Club. Now, Ambassadors Club, when we just came back, I was responsible. We were more focusing on the Sunday night. And we used to have a Sunday night disco party under the lights. And that was recorded and shown back on SVG TV weekly. So obviously, during that era, that was the night that persons put on the best dress and they came out under the lights and they can look forward, a bit like that program that used to have in the States, Soul Train, a bit in that Soul Train kind of mode. And it was shown back every week, and that was where everybody was coming out on the Sunday night. And then the management decided they wanted to add a Saturday night into that. Now, we were not members, we were not responsible for the promotion of that night, but that night, the Saturday night, obviously you had to compete with Aquatic Club. So you were running a risk competing with Aquatic Club. So that Saturday night, the arrangement that they made with the band was that we would play for the dough. And the door gate receipts was far from anything that was even adequate to pay one member. Let's just put it that way.
See, people know.
So when Stinny came and asked for us to play in Aquatic Club, and the management refused and said that we had to stay and play at Ambassadors Club, I had a hard look at what was being said. And I said, well, if you want us to play and you're stopping us from going to Aquatic Club and you want us to play in your club, mind you, we are professional musicians here, yeah? We're not working. Nobody has a day job. That's what we do. So I said to him, well, you would have to pay us a standing fee because the gate's not making any money on that night. And they said no. So we were, obviously we were playing on the Friday night. We had a gig to go to Beckway on a Friday, and we went to get the equipment, only to receive a message that the boss said not to touch the equipment. So, oh yeah. My journey has been a lot of ups and downs, but as I am, I stick no rubbish. So I wouldn't allow, and I would encourage the artists to be firm in your stance. Do not allow anyone to use you. And that is, I'm saying that affirmatively, because in my career, I have not allowed that in any way, shape, or form. So when that decision was, that message was handed out, I told the rest of the band that you know, they can continue. I'm only the lead singer, but I had my qualifications to fall back on, and I was not going to be part and parcel of anybody dictating to me how I would be paid and under what protocols I cannot, or perimeters I cannot go beyond. And I said to the guys, you guys can continue, but this is it. I make my decision there and then. I'm done. So this is how Gravity formed. The boss flew in from Holland the same week, the next week, and called a meeting. And I made it clear to the guys, I'm out. You guys can continue. But when we had that meeting, the guys decided, you know what? We're not going to continue either. So the meeting ended with the manager saying, could you go and do an inventory, please? And we went, we did the inventory. We had a van, which was on our transport. We left the keys and we all walked and got to our different homes. And we used to gather in Kingston at the Iron Man every day almost, because we were fresh from Holland. So we still had, you know, money that we can live on. So we would come there every day and hang out collectively as a group with no equipment, just, you know, musicians hanging out now. And one day, my cousin Ken Wiseman came to me and said, there's a gentleman from Barbados who wants to get some musicians to go to Barbados to play. And because of what the guys had done, I said to Ken Wiseman, I said, tell the guy to come and have a meeting with us because we have an entire band here without equipment. And because we were so tight as a unit, I said to him, we're not splitting up this unit for nothing. So the guy came down from Barbados, we had a meeting, and he agreed that he would bring the equipment that he had shipped to St. Vincent, and we would then start getting the equipment out, see what shortfalls there were, and we approached the bank. I approached the National Commercial Bank, of which my buddy Julian Francis was then the bank division, the manager, and he became our personal bankers, the band banker. And we presented a plan, a business plan, and it was adequately funded and supported at every step of the way through Julian. And without Julian's support, Gravity would not have achieved what it achieves, because we then were able to get a loan to buy extra equipment. We opened up Gravity Country Club in Cane Hall. We rented a house for all the players to live collectively as a unit. And all the expenses were paid by the band. All the bank loans were paid by the band. And we developed from strength to strength to the point where when the Scott brothers came back to St. Vincent and they realized what we had done since we left them as a unit without a penny, that we were now dominant force with our own business, our own nightclub, where we capitalize on our Sunday nights in Cane Hall. And he apologized to me for what had transpired. And he said to me, a man must be a man. And he is so overjoyed by what we have done to that stage that he then offered us a second tour to Holland. And we did the second tour. And when we came back, we finished that contracted period and we came back, and Touch came on the scene then. Exodus was doing a tour to Canada, and they asked if I would rejoin them, and I said, I had just come back, and I said, I would rather do it when you come back from the tour. And that was the history there. a mistake I made because I would never felt so uncomfortable in my life, where I was off stage for the very first time during Carnival for a very long time. And so we joined Exodus. That was the second phase. And that phase brought about hits like Baila Sanka, Don't Bend Down. We were then the tour band with Beckett. We were touring everywhere. So that second phase, again, I can say, as far as my career with Exodus is concerned, was that highlighted period.
Ken, back with you again. I remember these breaking up on all this breaking up stuff, because I was part of the Aquatic Club and I always used to get those stories. I remember when you were at Kane Hall, you were in the Ricks building. And because of that, I really grew know a lot about it. So in your journey as a musician, some of the obstacles anyway, what do you think drive you to keep you going rather than falling under some of these obstacles?
One of the factors there is I believe you have to believe in yourself and what you're trying to achieve. And of course, along the way, like any other thing that you try to do, you would get criticism. And criticism is good. It's healthy because even though you can get destructive criticism, you can also get constructive criticism. And as an individual, you have to believe in yourself and be able to decipher which is good from which is bad. And it is something that I've lived with, whereby I would not let anyone's comments deter me from what journey I'm trying to embark on. I would digest what they have to say, but would it affect me? If I think it's destructive, no. So one has to be able to believe in himself, believe in what you're doing, accept both sides of the criticism, but do not, under any circumstances, allow the negative ones to override what you are trying to achieve or what you believe in.
Because I remember this song, Ring the Bell. I know this story behind Ring the Bell when you were, it was at the Soca Monarch competition. And I want you to tell us a little bit about it, if you remember what happened, why you wrote that song, Ring the Bell.
Well, Ring the Bell is a social commentary on rhythm. And I have never had any political affiliation. As an artist, I believe that I have the responsibility to entertain and to highlight the issues that are affecting the people to whom I entertain socially. And as part of society, as an individual, I also have that right to exercise my opinion. However, because of the political climate in St. Vincent from way back when, I try to do that, and I have done that in a very responsible way. Because when I'm writing a political, social commentary, so per se, I try to focus on both sides of the argument and not one. So I am not deemed to be a member of this party or a member of that party. When I'm singing for the people. And I'm singing for the people who have been suffering or suffering either under the existing regime or the past regime, who would have been saying things to get into power, and when they get into power, they do the same thing. So my social commentary criticism was based on a balance where I would highlight what is going wrong as it relates to the governing party and what went wrong as it relates to the opposition party. And what they're saying now, when they had the opportunity, they didn't do it. But when they're on the other side, they promise all kind of things. And when they reach in the office, it's the same thing over and over again. That's just politicians. So I saw myself as somebody down the middle, where I would highlight the issues of the day, and I would also highlight what went wrong prior to the continuation of what's going wrong in present day. So I have done that, and I have done that. If you listen to tracks like Rightfully So, Ring the Bell. When I sang Ring the Bell, I remembered Jimmy Scott. Jerry Scott was in power at the time. The NDP was in power. And I sang Ring the Bell. And the way I wrote the lyrics for Ring the Bell, there were issues which were highlighted, which was surfacing in society at the time. And I remember one of the Scott brothers came to me, Jimmy Scott, the eldest brother, came to me and said, "Ken, how are you gonna do that?" I said, "How are you gonna do what?" He said, "How are you gonna write lyrics from condemning Jerry?" And I was like, "Sorry, did I? I'm sure I didn't." But the line he was referring to was something about the ministers. You go ring the bell on all the ministers if you think they are pushers. Now, my ministers had nothing to do with the government minister, you know. Right? My ministers was ambiguous. Ministers could be faith connection or ministerial connection. But he, because I said ministers, he assumed right away that I was talking about the government ministers being pushers. I didn't declare that in my song at all. So the point I'm making there is I always try to strike a balance, that I am not deemed affiliated with anyone. Pandy Rhythm, when Pandy Rhythm was written when the NDP was in power, right? Where Pandy is used. And in that, the opposition party at the time got blows as well, which was the Labour Party, not the ULP. So the point I'm trying to make is, my topics of the day, on the day, was primarily, if you were in government, you would obviously get the most blows because you are the governing party. But mind you, in that same song, the opposition getting licks too, where I would beat them with big sticks. So it brings me to a point where I know a lot of topics or conversations are being discussed about artists declaring themselves publicly aligned to political parties. I have never done that. I have refused to be associated with any political party on stage or in any entertainment environment. I've refused to do so under the Exodus umbrella when BT Marksman's brother, God bless his soul, P.R. Campbell was running for the NDP. And Exodus was asked to go on the campaign stage for one of the NDP rallies. And I blatantly said no in a band meeting. I said, I'm not going on stage with no political party to entertain on behalf of that party. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm an entertainer and I cannot, personally, I saw it wrong to be publicly be campaigning for a party. That's just my view. I know that a lot of discussion about individuals who do that now, but that's their choice. And if they want to take that calculated risk, I choose to exercise my rights, which I've only done once when I turned 18 in St. Vincent, was to just see the process of exercising my right to vote behind the canopies, and I cast my vote for who I want without publicly declaring who I'm voting for. So that's as far as that's concerned.
Okay, I just have a message from Mark Williams. Do you remember Mark Williams? You used to work with him at Getty's Grant.
Mark Williams, yes.
He's from Byra Hill, where I'm from.
Okay. Hello, Mark.
Yeah, he just told me to tell you hi.
Okay, Mark, nice. Hello, hope you're enjoying the program.
He's living out in BC, you know.
In?
BC, Vancouver area.
British Columbia.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
Big politician now too.
Yeah, he's into politics as well.
Okay. Right. I won't give you any licks, Mark.
Yeah. One thing I always discuss with artists on this program is dealing with how artists try to promote themselves. One thing I noticed, I do get a lot of requests from people who are not really artists from the Caribbean, a lot of requests from France and other countries. But when it comes to Caribbean and Vincentian artists, I find them lackadaisical in pushing themselves as an artist. They're waiting for you to approach them rather than approach you so that you can give them the necessary exposure that they want. How do you class that as a man, just write a song and just really leave it for the radio station to rather than promoting themselves?
Very good point. That brings us to we have to change the mindset. I am now into my solo career. And even though I started it in 1998, or 1997 rather, I only had 2 years of doing so because, as I said, I migrated to the UK in the year 2000. And whilst I was here between 2020 and 2017, I did not do any songwriting at all. I was more involved in live performances here at the smaller venues because I was then more full-time 8 to 4 work. And probably, I think at that time I was doing I think I was working at the airport as well in the evening. So I was doing many hours and also performing on the weekends at nightclubs and social clubs and so on. So it took me 17 years to get back into writing. And it was not by chance, it was by choice because, as I explained, busy schedule. And also, when you're getting back into this industry, you have to know your studios, your working relationship with the engineer, and so on, the whole chain of command that goes with with the arts. And it took me 17 years to really connect back with that aspect. Now, the marketing. This year in particular, I have, apart from releasing a few tracks between 2017 and 2019, where I would have done probably exactly what you just explained there. You write the track, you record the track, you put it on YouTube, you try and get it on the radio, and it's done. If it's played, it's played. If it's not played, it's not played. So I probably can be guilty in the first stage there of that scenario. However, what I've realized is that with the times now where you have social media playing a very, very important role in terms of reaching the audience outreach, it's a very effective tool to have in your arsenal. And acknowledging that, what I've done for this track that I've just released just a month ago is I have developed a marketing team. And of course, I gave you my background in marketing. I have, during my stint at Tigadi's Grant, I have been on extensive sales courses. And during all of that, I have my certificate in sales psychology. So what I'm implementing now is a bit of what I've learned in terms of selling the product of me as an artist. So I've developed a marketing team where embedded in that is one side of the team responsible now for developing the Instagram page, profiling the Instagram page, the YouTube page, and in all that combined now, a bio of myself and also a catalog of all the music that you're playing there now, which can be then sourced on these various platforms. And at the focus of that is the track this year, which is called Just Me and You. And soon, we're in the final stages now of entering the second phase of the marketing aspect of that track. The first phase is like what we're doing now, a lot of radio interviews. I have done as many radio interviews as you can think about, and they're still not finished. But coming on stream next weekend or just after next weekend would be a global dance challenge to the track, Just Me and You. And that global dance challenge, more information will be coming on that, but the template for that will be, we're looking to run that for about 4 to 6 weeks, of which we will finalize that before we launch. The video has been done and it's being, other aspects of it is being added so that we can complete that by next weekend. And we're looking to offer, I said global, yeah? So we're looking to offer a prize which can be accessible globally. So that the easiest thing there is a cash prize. And the cash prize we're looking to offer would be quite hopefully lucrative, very lucrative and attractive, so that we can attract an audience from all over the world. And we're in the process now of completing the sponsorship for that competition, because we're looking to offer cash, US dollars, good money, so we can get as many people participating, and at the same time that is being done, that the track can be then channeled and exposed to those various countries or where those contestants or participants would be participating from. So the whole thing is that the concept has to be looked at as a package. And a lot of times we, as you rightly said, we tend to just look at the smaller picture and not think outside the box. We need to be thinking outside the box because in this business I've learned it is who you know that's going to really take you along.
Yeah, because sometimes we don't know who is listening and who can help you to the next level. I say that
Correct.
because we have a young 16-year-old from UK. Her name is Olivia Lynn. She's a country pop singer. And she's been on this program about twice already. But the thing is that every time she make a move or every time she do something, I get the information. So you have more things to talk about the artist when you're playing the artist song. That is why I developed this radio, because if you look at reggae, they have the radio and they have the mouthpiece. I really don't see a mouthpiece for Calypso or Caribbean music. And that's what we are trying to do, because that's what we are doing. We are just trying to give artists something to promote themselves, because as we say, you do not know who is listening or who is watching or who can give you that next move. So with that being said, your words of encouragement to those artists.
Right. Don't be scared. And if you're not accustomed, when you do the first one and you do the second one, you can only get better. So if you're mic shy, if you're not confident in yourself enough to communicate, you need to. There is no shortcut. You need to get the message out there. And yes, we're not all blessed with the same confidence. But confidence, you're not born with confidence in terms of where you can go, how you can speak, or these things that you have to develop from one stage to the other. And you can only do that by getting in the line. I mean, I'm speaking to you now. From a very young age, I was one of the youngest members in the band, Exodus. We were all schoolboys, I said, but I was the youngest by some months. And during that early career, I was given the task of doing the bookings for Exodus and doing the public speaking for Exodus. Now, how I'm speaking to you now is not necessarily how I would have spoken in my very first interview for Exodus. I can't remember how it was, but I'm pretty sure that there was room for development there, but I wasn't scared. I went and I always was the mouthpiece for Exodus when it came to interviews. So there is no shortcut in this. You have to face the press. Even if as a musician, as a sports person, if you're trying to excel, you have to face the press and you have to sell yourself. So it's just part and parcel of the package. So there is no shortcuts. You just have to do the first one. Trust me. And when you do the first one and you recognize, be able to listen it back and say, I could have done better there and I could have done better there. But don't be scared. Do the second one. And when you do the second one, you're going to be better than the first one. And so on and so on. So you have to do it.
We're having a conversation with Ken Wiseman. So Ken, or Mr. Whizzy, do you mind telling us how the name came about, Whizzy?
Well, It's just something that derived from the surname Wiseman.
Okay.
Basically, it's just I just extracted, well, Wiseman, Wizard, Whizzy. So instead of saying wizard, I just thought, well, let me just say Whizzy.
I guess you know those writers. I did not see that one. Yeah. So my thing to you now is who did you look up to as a singer when you just started out, or when you were with the band, even when you were with the band?
Oh,
You wanted to be
that's
like.
easy. The person that really influenced me was Winston Soso. Yeah, big time. Because while we were rehearsing at Olive's Hotel, under the step, I think it was volume 5 at the time, was rehearsing across the street, just across the street from Olive's, before you go around the corner where Low Budget used to be. I can't remember the name of it, but there was a building on downstairs there that volume 5 used to rehearse at. And so across the road, I was learning my trade, and then coming out and hearing Winston Soso rehearsing with a more established band. And he was, God bless his soul, again, another one, who had a big influence on my style. My style, I think, is somewhat similar. I idolize his delivery and his writing, and he has been a big part as far as the local artists, local idol is concerned. On the international market, I listen to a lot of people. I think Michael Jackson had a lot of influence on me in that era. As a band vocalist, we had to do all the different genres of music, soca, calypso, soul, reggae, rock and roll. So we had to be quite versed. So you would find, as far as the soul side was concerned, I liked people like the Manhattans, Isaac Hayes, and those soulful guys, Percy Sledge, and
James
and
Brown.
the real voices that you that can really set you alight.
All right. So last year, after the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano, you went and you put pen to paper and wrote "We Are One Family." Give us the idea behind that, and give us what were you feeling at that time? Because the first one, you were probably living in St. Vincent in '79, and this one you weren't there physically. So give us the drive behind it for you to feel the urge to come out and do something like that. And
yes, well, when Soufrière erupted on April 9th, and the photos start coming through here, where I'm here in the UK, it just took me right back to '79, because in '79, it was as terrible as it was. I remembered it just like yesterday. And I knew exactly what the anxiety level was. I was a youngster then, and I just pictured what the anxiety would be at the time that La Soufrière blew as well. And all the panic and all the running around to get here, and the whole sky, I just envisaged everywhere being black and these clouds and and then the evacuation, where people were dislocated, their livelihoods disrupted, the normal way of life. And I actually had an experience where my daughter, who used to be an ex-student of St. Joseph's Convent, I think that La Souffre blew on the Thursday, and the Friday, she was on the way home and she passed that because the St. Joseph's Convent, Kingstown, that is, was then designated as an evacuation center. So she passed in there to see what was transpiring. And when she got home, she called me and she said it was appalling, to the point where she had to go back home and take one of the stories that she got from the sister was the evacuees are there. And the first day, of course, all things challenging, you know, that the only thing they had to offer them was some clothes. And the sister had some hot dogs or sausages that she was going to offer them, and that was it. And she said she went home and got some stuff that we had sent them for Christmas, and she took down some stuff to the schools. And when I after coming off the phone with her and I spoke to my wife and told her what was happening, it was all in disbelief. So we decided, me and my wife, that we would assist. So right away we started doing some calls and stuff that we think we can source. And I called again my very good friend Dr. Wilfred Lane, Velux, and I explained to Velux what was happening. And I identified because of the heavy ashfall, the first and foremost, should be mask and adequate mask. So we then tried to source, I think we sourced over 3,000 N95 masks. And I got Dr. Wilfred Lane involved to contribute to that aspect of acquiring the mask, which was just one aspect of what we donated. And my wife, we then sourced a lot of other stuff for not just St. Joseph's Convent, Kingstown, but also Calder School and private homes as well in Calder. So we acquired quite a lot of stuff in terms of, by that time when we did get on board, there were obviously, the response from the diasporas were overwhelming, where people were sending in food stuff. A lot of stuff was going in St. Vincent, water, canned food, So we decided, well, after hearing the release from Nemo, that they had adequate food stuff, and they had problems that people were sending in expired goods and all that, and they weren't going to accept canned goods. So we decided, well, we weren't going to get involved with that, but we would supply from the other side. So we looked at the hygiene side. We looked at sourcing toothpaste, pillows, sheets, duvets, shampoos. Of course, COVID was around, so we were looking at disposable, single-use items where we would send soaps, you know, so that persons going into the evacuation centers would have their own soap and not go into a bathroom and have to use a soap that everybody is using. Things of that nature, toothpaste, toothbrush, you name it. So we sent down quite a lot of stuff to the cause on an individual basis, with help from, as I mentioned, Dr. Lane. And after that was done, I decided to put this pen to paper and relate my experience here as it related to me being here in the UK. And I did that purely for documentation purposes. And after I did the audio, I decided, you know what? Let me do the whole package, because the photos which were coming out of St. Vincent was just frightening. Mm-hmm. And I decided to do a video to capture all of that within the audio track, so that one, it's documented. Second, La Soufrière doesn't blow every Monday morning. The generation that experienced La Soufrière today probably would not necessarily experience another eruption. But the generation that's not here yet may very well experience an eruption. And because we have social media, i.e. YouTube and so on, where it's readily accessible, if there was to be another eruption, God forbid, in another generation's time, the youngsters who would not know or who would not have experienced what an eruption of La Soufrière was like, they can literally go to YouTube, and there is a composition that explains it all, and not just explain it as in lyrical content, but also in the visual impact. So that was my purpose of doing not just the audio, but the documentation of the video, so that it is there documented. That's my personal contribution to a person's, when I'm gone to the great beyond, the next generation can identify if there is another eruption of La Soufrière.
Right. And I like the way you did the composition. You didn't make it all like sad, but it's more, for us to be together, as
Correct.
one family. Yeah. Ken, everybody who comes to Vincy Internet Radio always have to come back, and because it's like the story doesn't have an end, and we just want to hear more, but I don't want Sip to kick me off. So, man, it's been an absolute pleasure for me to meet you virtually and to hear your story. I just wish you, all the best in your upcoming ventures, and definitely when you're doing your new stuff, you'll come back to visit Internet Radio, and we'll have this conversation, which are so detrimental to more or less perpetuate our history. So thanks for your taking the time out to come on Vincy Internet Radio. I'll pass you over to Sip and let him have his last word, and he'll give you a chance to let people know where they can follow you also.
So I just want to ask you, what is it for Ken Wiseman moving forward? Great.
Well, I've just spoken to my producer, and let me just mention this as well, as I'm on that. My producer I've been working with for the last couple of years is a young chap called Hunter Flow Productions. And what we're trying to do is he's the younger generation, so he has that younger style of the production. And I, as a writer, now we're trying to fuse both aspects within that modern flair and the constructive writing of and evolving with a fusion of what's happening today. So kudos to Hunter for he did the work on all those tracks, and of course the track that's out now, Just Me and You. And before I go as to what we can expect further down the line in terms of a project, I mentioned the project for next 2 weeks, which will be the Global Dance Challenge for Just Me and You. In addition to that, I have a project tentatively, which I've just started to be on stream. Hopefully now we're having some sort of green light. It's not quite green yet as to what is happening with Vincy Mass 2022. But I have plans and have had discussions with Skinny Fabulous that we looking forward to doing a collaboration for Vincy Mass 2022. Whether or not, because of the timing constraints will get in the way of a collab being done, but there are discussions which were positive that we would work on it. From my side, I have I have several tracks which I've pulled out and sort of have that formulated, and I think I'm ready to go. I spoke with my producer today to have, as soon as the dance challenge is completed and launched, that we would then look within the next week or two, I start working on the second track for Vincy Mass 2022. And as I said, that is hopefully going to be in collaboration with Skinny. Fabulous. So that is one project to look forward to. As far as this track is concerned, which is out at the moment, and it's doing very well. I released it early, yes, but I released it early because I have a plan. The topic of the song, or the mood of the song, was constructed in such a way that the durability, the shelf life, can be extended right into Carnival, because it highlights all of the aspects that have been missing for the last two and a half, 3 years, and what we can be looking forward to as a people for Vincy Mass. And that track is now available on all the social media platforms. You can get it from Amazon Music, Spotify, and it's on the Fox Fuse Gateway, which gives access to all of the other major platforms globally. In addition to that, it's on the YouTube Julian Promos page and Hunter's production page as well on YouTube, and also Indigo Music. In addition to that, my Instagram page will be launched in sync with the Global Dance Challenge competition. And as I said, that Instagram page and also YouTube page would be additional to my Facebook connections and of course my WhatsApp chat group. So technically, I'm trying to get the track and my music going forward available on as many social media platforms as possible, because as you said, you never know who's listening, you never know who is searching. So the more the merrier. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank you and Mr. Mayers for having me on your program. And feel free anytime to contact me. You're quite welcome, willing, and I'm glad to come back on your program.
Not glad to come back. You are coming back. So
okay, boss.
we already start. We're gonna try draft up a schedule for Carnival, because we want to bring you guys who already appeared on my program closer to Carnival, so you can get a leeway closer to the real thing of the Carnival spirit. I mean, there might be people who want to push in, but as I always say here, first come is not first served. First come is who was here first. So you and the other guys who make this program what it is, you guys gonna have the first opportunity to let people know. Everybody else come, they're gonna be followers.
Thank you so much.
For the last thing now, how can people reach you if they need booking?
Okay, on the bookings, you would be able to contact me on my Facebook, my email, which, because I'm doing the Instagram page now, I have a new email address. So I'm going to give you both. The first one is Kendall Whizzy Wiseman at gmail.com. That's KENDALWHIZZY Wiseman at gmail.com. And when the Instagram page is launched, it would be Whizzy 57 D artiste. D as in letter D, EARTISTE at gmail.com. So I repeat that. Whizzy 57 dot dartiste at gmail.com. And also Short Mus Productions in Canada. He is also on the management team, and his information I would give to you now is email shortmus, SHORTMUS at msn.com. So that's shortmus, SHORTMUS at msn.com. And that's for bookings in North America and Canada.
That's Shortmus, John?
Yes.
Oh, I know who you are.
That's Ken Lee, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good friend of mine as well.
Good. And I gave you my email address, and my telephone number is +44 079 4409 9209. Let me repeat that. +44 079 4409 9209. And Shortmus's telephone number is +1 202 549 4142. And we would be taking those bookings. Hopefully, I am looking forward to being on stage again. As the song says, 3 years.
And if all that fails, you can reach us here at the station at Vincy Internet Radio, and then we can pass the message on to Mr. Ken Wiseman. Ken, we're gonna take you out of the program with your latest song, and thanks a lot for coming on to Vincy Internet Radio. Remember, this is not your last time on Vincy Internet Radio. You'll be back at any time you have anything that you want to come to me with, any promotional stuff, whether it's a jingle or any kind of thing like that, man. Don't be afraid, man. Just reach out to me and we will get that going. So once again, thanks a lot, Ken. Enjoy the rest of your night. It's now 11:30. Sorry to keep you up so late.
That's no problem. Thank you very much for having me. And thanks for the audience, the listening audience who have been listening to the program. I hope you enjoyed and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you guys so much.